Hi everyone, this is Norman Kochnick here. Eyes on Cricket with Norman Kochnick. Well, it may well be called Eyes on Sports with a Z starting January 1,
Wow.
2023.
Tell me about that, Norman. Go on.
Yeah, I will. Let's quickly introduce Banstead boy, Reg Vernon,
Hi,
as well.
everyone.
How are you, Reg?
I'm really well. Happy Christmas to you and to everyone watching and listening.
I think people will enjoy that because, quite frankly, Australia's quite chilly. It feels more like a winter than a summer at the moment. We're only just barely reaching 20, which is not warm for this time of year. We're expecting David Graveney as well. But yeah, the intention is I've just had a show on before with a bunch of my mates, which I think you may have seen. We all talk about, they love talking about all sorts of sports, but it just seems to be the way of these channels that I might introduce the concept of eyes on sports rather than just eyes on cricket. Yeah. Because certainly the whole world was watching the World Cup that Argentina won very handsomely just the other day. Well, at least they won in what appeared to be a close match. They were always in control, I thought.
Drop my phone.
Yeah.
Bear with me.
Yeah.
Go on.
And I mean, and then obviously with the onset of Olympics in the future, the movement in sport in general, with a lot of other sports now, whether it's tennis. I mean, tennis is a world sport. So is cricket, you would argue. Soccer or football is certainly one. Olympics is certainly one. Whether we start to include then further afield like rugby, well, it's not a world sport, but it's certainly World Cup. We may even look at gridiron, which is not a world sport. It's certainly American-based. But the consideration is to make it eyes on sport because the World Cup of soccer could not be left out of conversation. So it makes me think that cricket's still at the forefront, but we could bring in other topics depending on where the focus is, especially when it comes to Olympics and like. It just broadens the channel in the future as well. And I'm getting one of my graphics guys, the Sri Harsha guy that I know who loves doing graphics. He's going to consider doing. And I've got a girl in Switzerland who's French, Claire Nui. She's a good friend of mine. She's doing these. I just looked at her work. She's done some great graphics. A beautiful young lady. I've known her for years. Ash, welcome back now. Ash. Who is Ash? You better Ash Deep or who are you? I'm not sure.
Tell us where you are. Who you support, Ash? Who's your team?
Now, I'm waiting for David Graveney. He's due in as well, but we'll start. David's very pumped up to talk about, as you would be as well, Reg, regarding the way that England played Pakistan. And no one can tell me that, and we're going to make an apology up front. You do that, Reg, on our behalf.
On mine and Norman's behalf, because we briefly spoke about it before we came on air, we both predicted that Pakistan would win the series 1-0. Because we didn't think that England could carry on playing the cricket that they played over in England last summer, which was all out attack. And they did play that cricket. Well, we thought they would go. We thought they'd go on, but we thought that they'd lose doing so in Pakistan. But it just proved to be wrong, and England won. I mean, and they won easily. And do you know what, Norman? We'll get onto this. They won because they've got the best captain in world cricket at the moment, who actually won. Certainly one game by declaring in a game where no other captain in world cricket would have declared.
Exactly.
And England could have well lost. And he came out at the end of the game in his interview and said, "We are not interested in draws." So he declared, knowing that they might well lose, but giving him a chance to win, and they won. And that is just, the future is bright if other sides follow suit, isn't it?
It certainly is. I'm just worried about David because he asked for a link, but I sent him the email already. Just bear with me, man. I'll just have to get that sorted. Look, the point is, which is of great interest to me, is that England in the World Test Championship are not figuring the top 3 or 4, which is probably where they're headed to be the main.
Bit of a shame,
isn't it? Fifth, actually. I think they're fifth. Yeah. Behind Australia, India second, South Africa third, and fourth, I believe, is
Pakistan. We're up there.
I think maybe Pakistan's still ranked fourth. So what it tells me, though, which is interesting, is that England made a very late charge and have missed out. But boy, oh boy, they probably deserve to be in that final. But it looks as though Australia has certainly wrapped up one spot, and if they keep beating South Africa and India keep winning against Bangladesh,
Yeah,
India will probably be the other finalists at this
and
stage.
it'll be a great game. I mean, they're two brilliant sides, and I bet they're both delighted they're not going to be playing England in England. You know,
Oh, gotcha. So that will be played at the Oval, I believe.
is it the Oval? Okay, that's always a good track.
I believe it's the Oval. Hang on a sec. Just you keep talking. I'm just going to go off screen just for 1 minute. Just you keep talking, and I'll just
I will
you probably can
respond
still hear me.
to Arsh. Arsh said this series, England and Pakistan, my favourite player is Ben Duckett. Interesting player, Ben Duckett. He played for England maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Was seen as a little bit of a bad boy at the time. Had a few discipline issues, I think involved with maybe Alex Hales in some just bad boys on tour sort of thing. Went away, changed county, I think I'm right in saying, and it's been a solid performer. But no one would have thought that he would have been playing Test cricket for England anytime soon, and certainly not as an opening bat. But he fits in with the McCullum-Stokes view of how cricket needs to be played. He was also, I think, a horses for courses selection for the subcontinent because he's quite small and he sweeps and he pulls and he cuts very well as a small player. You find a lot of small players do that. And he played brilliantly, didn't he? Was it 372 runs at 70 in the series?
Yeah.
And he will definitely.
Who was that? Who were you quoting?
Ben Duckett.
Yeah.
Norman. I was saying he was a horses for courses selection, really, but no one would have really put him on the radar to have been picked. No. But he fits in with the McCullum-Stokes view of the game.
Does that mean that who's the other opening batter that batted with Crawley? What was his name again?
It's Alex Lees.
Yeah, what happened to Alex? Is he just dropped, is he?
They dropped him. I mean, he had a good go. They gave him at least 10 tests, I think, at least 10. Never quite did it. And so they looked elsewhere. I mean, Duckett's certainly seized the opportunity, hasn't he? Was it 103 50s in 3 tests? Something like that.
He's done remarkably well, actually.
Yeah, and he's going to always be aggressive. I mean, it's the way he plays. He only plays that way. Whether that's going to work out in New Zealand in February, difference when the ball's moving around a bit more laterally from the quick bowlers, but he'll certainly be given a go. They won't drop him. He'll open the batting in New Zealand, and we'll see how he goes.
Exactly. But Harry Brooks' stats: 3 matches, 468 runs, 350, average 93.60. That's Brambonesque, to say the least.
And his strike rate, Norman, was 93 as well for the series. And did you see the stat where it puts him a batsman who scored 300s in their first 4 tests? He's in a very, very elite group, which I'm going to forget all of it now. Conrad Hunt, the Black Bradman, the West Indian guy, Headley.
Yeah.
Headley,
Headley, Reg.
Hello, David. How are you? Merry Christmas.
And to you, Norman.
How are you, David?
All right. Have we got to talk about the destruction of Australian cricket, or is it
destruction? Is that premature? Slightly, seeing we beat South Africa in 2 days.
Oh yeah. On what?
What was the difference between the wicket and the outfield? Because there wasn't too much difference.
Now, granted, I was a little bit green throughout. Yes.
It's got to be bad when the Australian captain on interview at the end of the game basically said it wasn't fair. It wasn't a fair test. It wasn't good for cricket. It wasn't fair.
Yeah, people need to win, so I don't have a problem about that.
But you must both agree with me. If you play on a green top or a road or a spinning wicket, both teams have to play on the same surface.
Oh no, there's no problem about that. If we did it in England, Norman, the ECB would be hanging people because they've lost income more than anything else. They'd have to give all the money back. So.
Yeah, there were people. I know people that had booked all year this corporate box on day 3, and they couldn't use it.
And the food in the corporate boxes at the Gabba is excellent, because I've
Oh,
experienced it.
so now this is a stat that I quoted before, David, which you would be well aware of, the Harry Brook
Yeah.
stat.
Well, I'm not trying to be wise after the event, Norman, but I have spoken about Harry Brook on numerous occasions.
You did.
You gave us the first warning about him before we knew who he was.
Yeah, so he's certainly in an environment I work in. Both of you, he is the best player I've seen since Joe Root, and it's ironic they both came from the same county. He profited from, I think, going to Sedborough as a public school. So all these arguments about, sort of don't use the private sector is nonsense, really. But I did actually, which is the reason I wanted really to share my views with you, was that I had, when I was in the Middle East with the under-19s, was that I had breakfast with Robert Key.
Really?
Proper David Graveney.
Yeah, so he pops in on the way back from Pakistan to see how the under-19s were doing, and he was so enlightening in terms of how they're managing. I think what they're doing is to create an environment to allow people to express themselves. And Reg was right. They didn't set out to get 500. They just played the way they play. So, and I think that the comparison that's been given to me between Crawley and Duckett, you've got a tall, upright batsman who drives down the wicket, and then you've got a short little lad who chops and plays square of the wicket all the time. So for the bowlers, it's difficult to work out what the length is. But with Duckett in particular, who I've known since he was under 14, there have been too many people telling him, you can't do this, you can't do that, or whatever. And I think they said, just go and play. So he's playing with the handbrake off now. So he's seriously dangerous. I think extreme pace will be a test for him. He's always been an excellent player of spin. But I think that they are. I think McCullum and Stokes, I know, are creating an environment for the people to express their skills and enjoy their cricket. Now, we all know winning is, you enjoy winning more than you losing, but I think they're trying to take away the fear of losing. And I said to him, well, that can easily, if you lose 10 in a row, then you might have to reconsider it. But the way they're playing and the confidence they have, and I would have to say, I have spoken about Rayhan before, but the way they managed him was outstanding. They kept him under wraps, let him bowl in the right situation, and even let him bat in the right situation. That was an inspired move to send him in the second innings when the game was won.
Here is interview at the end when I asked him what happened, and Stokes just said to him, "Oh, go and get your pads on. Do you fancy it?" And he said, "Yeah." And he said, "What's the instruction?" He said, "Well, we're going to try and win tonight. Enjoy yourself." Yeah. Basically, that's brilliant, Norman, isn't it? Absolutely brilliant. And the kid came out and had a bit of a slog, really, but
I think Stokes has shown himself to be pretty inspirational as a leader, and also tactically in terms of some of the field placing he's come up with. He himself, as his contribution as a player, it wasn't winning matches on his own, but I think his leadership is really good.
Well, David, would you have declared in the second test when he did, leaving them an eminently gettable target?
Yeah, I think what they're trying to do is to show that actually, and I think it confused the Pakistanis. I think when they were in the dressing room on the last day at tea time, they weren't quite sure what they were supposed to be doing. Were they supposed to be going for it, defending? And in the first and second test, they had the chance to win Pakistan.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
And it shows having people down the order to bat is everybody wants it. Sometimes you can't get it because of the balance of the team. And I think they're both saying that, we might lose, but we're not going to, sort of destroy ourselves if we happen to lose a test match. So I think the one line that stuck with me when he said he had to go and get his plane back to Dubai, he said, it's in the current climate around the world, not only just in England, it's our responsibility to inspire the population in terms of the way that we play cricket. So they
Yeah.
go to a cricket match and they enjoy the experience of doing it. So batting people out of the game is not an enjoyable experience because it's like watching paint dry. The fact that both test matches went down to the wire on the fifth day.
Oh, they were sensational.
So the
Two of my
wickets,
favourite
the
test
wickets
matches.
are relevant how you play, Norman. So you've got, and I think not tempering the victories, but I think you have to factor in mind Pakistan have not played red ball cricket for a number of years. So in that first test matches, they had 6 guys making their debut. And I think the point I think Reg made the last time we were all on, they don't have great stocks of spinners. Their strength is their seam bowling. So they lost sort of Nazim, Shahid. They lost a few blokes who would have made a difference.
But let's have been talking about spinners though. They did blood Abram Ahmed, and he took 7 in his first innings.
He did, but I think he knew. I think it's a bit like if you look at Rayhan's wicket, particularly the first one, which nearly decapitated Pope on the drive. But people do that, don't they? You know, even when you're playing on a green wicket, some of the shots at England, Australia, South Africa, the wicket-taking deliveries weren't flash. So you're trying to defend for your life or whatever. You get something that got bells on it, and you throw the kitchen sink at it, and it looks a bizarre dismissal. But he is a very, confidence is. I don't know how deep that goes, but I don't see him necessarily playing against
New Zealand,
New Zealand or Australia. He might play instead of Rashid if Rashid was injured in the white ball cricket.
Yeah,
but he'll definitely play in India.
But it's been a great series because we have seen the onset of 2 new spinners, as in Rehan Ahmed and Abrar, and also the blossoming of Harry Brook. It's been fantastic in that perspective. And then you've seen old stage like James Anderson still cutting it, getting wickets. Ollie Robinson did the same thing. Mark Wood. It was a brilliant series. I actually found it much more exciting than watching Australia and South Africa in 2 days. Just go for it. There was no comparison. Much prefer England versus Pakistan to Australia.
But the way they played, Norman, was the key thing. They took the wicket out of the contest, and it was serious. You know, the way that people were talking on the first and second day, Ramiz Raja talking about to disgrace the wicket. Well, ask him tea time on the 5th day whether you think the wicket's a disgrace, because it wasn't. But it was made to be an entertaining game by both sides. You know, they played enterprising cricket, and both sides could have won right until the end in the first and second test match.
I must say, your background, David, you look like you're in an Emirates first-class suite there.
No, it's my man cave, Norman.
The man cave, David.
Sorry?
You've been banished.
No, this is my hiding place, Reg. Don't worry. The only people who can come in here are me and my grandchildren. So behind it, I'll try and turn the picture around, and I'll show you all the pictures I've got up here. Princess Diana.
Oh wow!
Rebel tours.
That picture of that funeral that you went to with your next to Elton John, that still is such a strong, presence. When I saw that, that's amazing. What an experience you must have had, David. I've been there for that.
It was an extraordinary thing, I must admit. It was an extraordinary thing to see certain people, I'm not trying to belittle them, who, so basically your time of arrival was based on your importance in life. And some people got the message slightly wrong, I would have to say. So there's one chamber in where we're having a funeral, and there's a second chamber where the royal family would be, and prime ministers and presidents or whatever. So I was positioned early doors. So my wife wanted to get there about 5 hours before, and when we went on the tube, walked through where they do Trooping of the Colour with some of the other Gloucester players who've been invited. And actually, in the package that was sent to us, I had a badge that I could have given to a black taxi that would have driven me straight to the entrance.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but we didn't use that. So, but we did have a on the way back. We on Edgware Road, we used to go to a Spanish restaurant, So they were doing a rerun of the service, and this waitress was looking at the TV and then looking at Julie, my wife, and saying, "That's you, isn't it?" "Yeah, it is me, actually." So, it was, it's one of those occasions, very sad. I don't think I've seen so much grief. Well, not in my lifetime. I'm sure there have been things in terms of Winston Churchill dying or whatever, but it would live. You're right. It would live with me for the rest of my life. So
Amazing.
I was very honoured to be able to go. So back to the cricket then. So I think, I don't know what Reg thinks. I think this is the first time I think we have a golden period of time, both with red and white ball at the same time, because they've separated the coaching. They've identified players that play one form or the other. And we've been asked to do that at under 19 level. And again, I'm not trying to crow or try and predict what might happen. Well, I think I know what's going to happen in the summer, unless the big three of Australia bowl us out. I can't see Australia winning, really, because I don't think their batting is as strong as England's. They've obviously, and you don't like people struggling and failing. David Warner has contributed greatly to Australian cricket over a number of years, but that is a problem for them at the present stage, because he's, ever since he opened
his mouth, David, isn't it?
Yeah, ever since he wanted to revisit the leadership thing, and he's been under the microscope as well. His family has been slagged off, so it's a hard time for him.
Who comes to open? Who've they got? Who comes in to open?
Well, I'd have to say, well, Norman would know, but I don't think. Again, I'm not trying to sort of crow about how well. I am crowing about how well we're doing. But looking at the quality of the cricket, and I know you're quite right about the Big Bash, Norman, that it's not necessarily. But the quality and the players playing in it are pretty average.
Sorry,
it is. I mean, it's dropped. There was a hat trick. Michael Nesta scored a hat trick today in a match, which was somewhat of a high point. But in essence, the team scores are low. The fielding's ordinary. The bowling's quite okay. I'm not knocking the bowling. Their batting's atrocious across the board. The crowd's not there. It's heading one way and it's down. Unless something dramatic happens, they will not survive. Something's not giving.
15 all out, Norman. What happened there?
Did you watch it? I watched it, Reg.
No, didn't see it.
Well, Jason Singer kept saying it was just the luck of the draw. All the balls nicked off or caught. And it's partly true, but he was captain. And after the match, he gave a real non-committal type, nonchalant, it happens, move on. He had nothing damning to say. He should have been quite critical of his team and have made a point of saying we can't let that ever happen again. But he seemed to be a bit non-caring, which worried me. If he's meant to be the captain, he should have taken a sterner response. It was unacceptable.
No, they pitched it, Reg. They just pitched it up, and it seemed a little bit, swung a little bit. The keeper took 5 catches, some of them pretty good and slipped, but it didn't do it. There weren't any really shocking shots. They just didn't sort of try and bat properly. So you don't have to go from ball one, but the number of shots people like first ball was just extraordinary.
Yeah. But it's not just, you can't just isolate it to that game. There are other scores which have been mediocre as well. And the dismissals have been very mediocre from just straight sky balls. Look, it's a worry.
Other wickets slightly inferior because of all the rain that the country's had, or not?
You can't blame the wickets in this case at all. The Brisbane green top for the test is another story altogether.
So
but in general, it's not the pitch
does
conditions
the
that are worrying.
get a bollocking for that or not?
Sorry?
Does a curator get a bollocking for producing a green top like that?
He should. The Brisbane curator, I've got his name, is quite apologetic, and he's on tenterhooks apparently, whereas the SCG, MCG curators are in better position. This Brisbane guy's really stuffed it. He's on notice, I believe, very, very much so. Not just from the Gabba itself, but from the ICC and Cricket Australia. They're all very annoyed about the way, especially the comments that have been made from both Steve Smith and Elgar are equally as damning from both sides.
Oh yeah, no, I think their appraisal of the wicket was really fair. I would have to say it shows how well Head played in the context of the match, because
Mm.
I watched a bit on the first day after Warner got out, and there was nothing. It was a short pitch ball, and he just took his eyes off it really, and just ballooned it straight up in the air.
But I mean, Labuschagne, no, sorry, Travis Head did well under the conditions, and you got to give him that credit for that. But in essence, they're unplayable balls. The balls left divots, which when they hardened became very much a ball.
That's what I was saying about the wicket. That actually, to play a Test match wicket that takes divots is unacceptable, really. Given the machinery that people have, and they can put sort of like electric lamps all over the wicket, which to enhance grass growing and dry things out. It shouldn't be as soft as that. That's what that's what Reg and I used to playing club cricket, not a Test match.
I played on many of those.
So I tell you what, though, it's damaged. Okay, the reputation of the Gabba certainly has been tainted, but it's damaged the Australian batting lineup because they really have some issues now. Rabada and the like went through them pretty heavily in that second innings in such a short space of time. They've got the wobbles a little bit. I tell you, it's interesting to see Australia come back up to the next test.
But it's amazing how it goes around in circles. If you go back to the T20 tournament, which was really good, Australia staged it really well. Rabada could not get a wicket. He was their weakest link as a bowler, and now he's their best bowler. So it does go in cycles. I just fear for their batting. I can't look at the South African batting lineup, and I just don't see anybody getting 100.
No, Elgar
spoke. Just a quick set of comments I'm picking up here too, by the way. A lot of people are making comments from a Pakistani perspective because Nazam Sethi has also been given the PCB chairmanship. Unfortunately, a man who I've got a lot of time for, Razim Raja, has been, well, they're saying sacked, but I think it's more he's also stepped aside. He seemed to be not able to handle the role as he should have, and he's been put to one side, which is very sad because you can't blame him for the Pakistan team losing 3-0.
Vocal when he doesn't need to be, I think, wouldn't you think? So you've got to keep diplomatic sometimes. I mean, if you're the chief, rather than
he's very emotive, at least.
Yeah, I used to know his brother really well, Reg.
Okay, yeah.
Wasim Raja. So
Yeah. He played here a lot. I think I played against him, David. I think he played in the Surrey Championship in his later years.
Yeah, he took a particular liking to my left arm spin. Well, he joins a long list. Let's put it like that.
Do you mean your left arm slow bowling, David?
Yeah, slow bowling.
Now I must quickly tell you, Lord Ian Botham, who we talked about with his, met him in the lift and also discussed a lot with him at the event. He talked about David, but he's still here. He's commentating for the tests, which is intriguing. For Australia and South Africa, they got Lord Ian Botham, they got Brian Lara still hanging around, and Ian Smith. So it's quite a bunch of great players commenting on a game which they're not directly involved with in terms of history, which is
it's good for Ian Botham. 2-day test, he can go off and do what he wants to do.
Well,
but he is promoting trade between England and the world, in particular Australia. That's very impressive. He seems to be getting a lot of traction too.
Well, a few people had a chuckle. It was announced that he was promoting. He was an ambassador for England, in particular promoting wine. So a lot of people thought that was actually a very good choice, really.
David Gow would be a good choice for that as well, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Our favourite bloke who knows nothing about cricket is on the comments, Norman, DeBassis. He needs to listen because David Graveney said Wasim Raja was Ramiz's brother, so he didn't get it wrong, DeBassis.
Yeah.
And I don't think DeBassis on his comments are slightly above, watched any of the test series in Pakistan. He thinks that Australia are far superior, David. He disagrees with what you're saying. He says you're biased. And the Australian batting lineup is far to England.
You never know what might happen. I've always said on this podcast that actually being favourite for England is a bit of a heavy mantle for them to wear. But I'm sure when Australia arrive, they will be regarded as favourites.
No.
I think they'll be challenged in New Zealand. No, England will be favourites, not Australia.
Yeah.
They'll be challenged in New Zealand because I think a change of captaincy, as sad as it is, actually does freshen the team up. So it'll extend Southey's career for a bit. And they're very used to playing on their wickets and how to bowl them. They will find it difficult playing against England because they can match them in all the areas that they're strong at. So, Southey's like Anderson, Wagner, who blows the middle out of the wicket. Well, you can put Wood in that position as well. So, and England will outbat them. So.
Have you heard any more, David, on Archer? I read or heard that he's going to come back possibly into the white ball team. They're looking to get him back involved.
I think again, this is exactly the absolute pole difference from when England, and you can put it like that, jumped into bed with Stanford and basically blocked people playing in the IPL or any franchise cricket. Now, if you read the comments about Rayhan, which I think is absolutely right, go and play franchise cricket with a white ball, play in different teams, different coaches, world-class players, and your learning curve will be far greater than wandering around carrying drinks. And I think that, again, sums up a much more enlightened thing. And I don't disagree with the comment that's come through. India and Australia being the world that final because they're just in a stronger position than England. So,
well, England have risen to 5th position, and if they had more time, they probably would be in the top 2.
Yeah, so
they're running out of time. They've got not enough series.
So, and India Australia is always a good watch, and the Oval is a fair wicket for it to be played on.
Well,
and they played in June.
The Aussies will prefer it, won't they?
Well, I think both have a lot of support. I've always felt that there's a lot of Australians who live in London, and obviously the Indian support is worldwide. So I think it would be a great final. Australia and England are not in it, but they're probably the two teams over the period.
For the Australian bowling attack, David, won't it, than the Indian bowling attack? You'd think.
Sorry.
The wicket will suit more the Australian 4-man seam attack than it would the Indians.
But the Indians, I think the Indians have got some. It hinges a lot for me if Bumrah's fit, because he is a point of difference for their attack.
Oh, he's fantastic. Yeah.
Well, Australia, if they continue to defeat South Africa, which they probably will, and India defeat Bangladesh, which they probably will in the next test, it does shore up that Australia versus India. India, of course, will play Australia in a home series, some 4 test matches February, March. So there's going to be another chance for India to bolster themselves in that top 2. But yeah, South Africa is falling away. But England are the one that's rising with a bullet, but won't be there in time. So it'll be great to see England continue this form into the next cycle of the World Test Championship, and they should be odds on to have a great chance of going into the finals as well. Which will be
I think this is not a wild prediction. India versus Australia and India. Nathan Lyon could be a very tired chap by the time he gets to the end of that series, because I have a fair idea what wickets they'll be preparing for Australia. It's never changed every time they do it. So,
who's the second spinner, Norman? Who can Australia take? Agar?
Well, I mean, Swepson, I think, has lost his favour. They're still grooming Zampa. They're grooming Zampa to not only play short form, but play long form. There's a lot of talk about Zampa being given the nod.
But they'll go for it. So. That's the problem. They'll go all out to attack him, won't they?
Yeah.
No, that's the modern way of playing spin, and that's why England were really clever in protecting Rayhan because he was a young kid. He doesn't bowl like a young kid, that's for certainty. And I'm sure Indian supporters and people will say that, why are you talking about 18 being very young? Some of their guys play when they were about 15. So what age was Tendulkar when he made his debut? 16?
Yeah, if that, yeah. Yeah, he was young.
This Todd Murphy's getting a mention. I've heard some discussions about him, but I think it might be a tad too early for him.
I quite like. I could see Agar going in a squad, Norman.
Yeah.
might be different because he is now become a really experienced cricketer, a dependable guy when he bowls. He can bat, field, and do everything really.
But they need a leggy, don't they, David? They're going to take Nathan Lyon. They need a point of difference, surely.
Yeah. Well, I think what they do, which I think is really clever, they don't try and produce roads. It favours spin, but not making it, that anybody can take a wicket. You still got to have a high level of skill to be able to bowl people out. And the Indians will be still in the same position. They desperately need Jadeja to come back or be fit for selection.
I was impressed with Will Jacks. His efforts in Pakistan were quite commendable.
Yeah, no, he's they've all come through the under-19 cycle, so I think the talent identification that England are doing, but it's down to the player. Norman, you could produce the stage and whatever, but in the end, sport is about taking your opportunities, and Will plays in a manner that actually is. I think he can bowl, but he doesn't get enough opportunity to bowl when he's at Surrey, and it's more white ball. But actually, if you let him bowl red ball, he's a threat. Got a nice strong action, spins it, but like any spinner, they need millions of overs and balls to perfect their craft. Because the attitude, as Red said, people just launch young spinners into orbit. They'll be dressing rooms, so don't let him settle. Don't let him have any confidence and just smash him, basically.
So, going back to the selections in the Pakistan-India series, England series, you had new debutants come through. Rehan Ahmed, a teenager, that's been lauded upon. That was a great. Abrar and his bowling, even Harry Brook. What I'm concerned about is I don't see that happening in Australia. We don't take a chance and blood a teenager in our Australian team. It's been a long time since Australia actually had a teenager into the Australian structure. Why is that?
What I'm slightly disappointed by is that some of the names that I've seen in under-19 cricket in Australia don't seem to progress into state teams and higher up. They have, and not everybody's going to play international cricket, but we seem to have identified a few diamonds in our system. And what has happened is that they've removed the phrase, which is Reg will relate to, particularly in all sports in England, it's too early. It's never too early. If you've got talent, put him in and protect him, so he learns his game as he's going along. So that's what's happened with Rehan. That's what happened with Harry Brook. They just put him in. They've now got a problem. If once Bairstow's fit, where do they put him in?
Well, he's playing because they asked McCullum in the interview at the end of the test what will happen when Johnny Bairstow's fit, and he says, "Well, he comes straight into the team without." He said it twice. He said he will. There will be no doubt that as soon as Johnny Bairstow is fit, he plays.
Yeah. So,
well, they won't play two spinners in England, so that sort of frees up a.
Well, they have the opportunity to give Pope the gloves, so that frees up a spot.
Yeah, a bit unlucky on folks because his runs were vital in this last test. Absolutely vital.
But he always is the fall guy, Reg.
Shame. That run out, by the way, of Bubba, that was absolutely brilliant by Ben Folkes.
Oh, for sure.
Brilliant player, but we have not an embarrassment to riches, Reg. We just got some options which we've never had before.
Did you hear the interesting stats on that, Norman, on the two run outs? It's only the third time in Test history that both captains have been run out in the first innings of a Test match.
Really?
Yep. The last one happened, I'm going to get this wrong, someone will correct me, about 1972 was the last time it happened, and it was Ian Chappell and Bev Condon were the last two to get run out.
Well, I played against Bev Condon. So when he was
that was it. I bet that was entertaining, David. He used to block it a bit, didn't he?
Well, they all used to block it, actually. So. They had a left-hander called Bruce Edgar. He also was keen on.
Yeah.
Well,
Bruce Edgar, yeah.
the game, how it was played then, Reg, to what we're witnessing now is just light years around.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
you were
yeah.
right. They would just keep playing the same way. And yeah, I know that the debutant for Pakistan did really well, but the bowling around him was pretty poor, really. So they were pressurised in terms. I know they got some injuries, but yeah, the games could have gone the first two either way, and it didn't. So, but I think not tempering our celebration of winning 3-0 for the first time in the next number of years. But Pakistan have not played red ball cricket for quite a long time. And they had new players doing it, whereas our team, as it happened, have played a lot of red ball cricket in the last 12 months, had success, had confidence, and they went into it. But the way they're being managed and the way they're being led on the field is just inspirational, I would say. So if that's their job, to inspire the public watching and supporters, they're doing a pretty good job.
Did you hear, Norman, on the second? I think it's the second morning of the test, the last test. What the England warm up was, the pre day's play. Did you hear what that was?
No.
They did a 6-hitting competition.
Really?
That was
I saw that. I thought that was a rest day, not on the game.
no. That was their warm up prior to the
Stokes and McCullum.
How clever. I mean, you go back to what you said earlier, David, that you had breakfast with Rob Keys. The fact is that we're talking about, obviously, the Baz ball, the Stokes McCullum duet, the way they're doing things. But Rob Keys is really responsible for this. He brought them into play, surely. He was the major orchestrator.
And he was, and I would have to say, Norman, that's very typical of him as a bloke. He's pretty laid back. Ironically, as captain of Kent, he wasn't a great fan of under-19 cricket. He objected vehemently to people being selected for under-19s when they could play for Kent.
that'd be Daniel, I guess, wouldn't it?
Yeah, so that's. But no, I must admit, Norman, if I could have taped it, you would have been amazed at his attitude, which was
I would have loved it.
So enlightening, so refreshing, so positive, and I think that's what they've taken onto the pitch. What I didn't realise was how good tactically Stokes is as a captain.
Oh, but he's been allowed to be that way too. Maybe it's been always within him. He's able to flourish now.
Ever in terms of where he's put players, and I'm sure there's been a lot of input by other players into doing it. But you know, Joe Root had done a brilliant job, but he was just tired of, and he played in a period of time when England weren't winning, so he's got to be lined up in front of the press all the time, and that just takes huge chunks out of you every time you have to do it. So hopefully, and it'll only be temporary, he gets some form back when they go to New Zealand, and plays well. But yeah, who would take on an away trip? Because the restrictions around the players are still pretty, particularly in Pakistan, and no fault to anybody, but you know, bearing in mind past history, they didn't go out of the hotel only to play golf. So they had a golf simulator in the team room. Wow. This team will be the best bunch of golfers you have ever seen.
But let's be honest, it's about the mentality, it's about the approach. But even the selections, the sheer way, bringing Harry Brook in and giving a good go, Ollie Pope at number 3, even bringing Ben Folkes in the last match, he was he's keeping at another level yet again because he took some great catches and took a good something. To me, run-outs as well. The fact is that they're selecting well. They really are.
And the people involved with that of Mo Bobat as the performance director of the ECB, it just seems to me, and I'm part of it at the bottom rung, so I think that there's much more close working together from under 19 through to Lions and then the senior team. Everybody working together, everybody identifying the talent and how they should be introduced, and it's more earlier than later. And removing this, well, he's not ready, he can't possibly play at that level. So that's been removed. Also, handbrakes around people who play play differently. Somebody who doesn't play with the MCC coaching manual, just to go and do what you do. You know, there's very different ways. You know, it's not like everybody plays golf with the same golf swing. They all have different golf swings, but there are certain elements that they do properly. But the combination of the first two, and Ollie Pope, the way he plays is that he just doesn't let the opposition settle. He just scores runs quickly. So
what about Sam Curran? He played so well in the recent World Cup, being the player of the series. Is there a place for him in Test cricket still?
Oh, without doubt. Yeah, and I think I saw the quote actually coming from Cummings in Australia. We're trying to get into a position where they have a stable of fast bowlers, because it's interesting to see that actually Stark needed a rest because he was burnt out. Hazel has been injured. Cummings has been injured. So England have had the same injuries as well. They just need a group of bowlers that they look after and can introduce, you know, at short notice, which I think that's the way the teams are going.
So I think because of this,
they do have stocks of fast bowling, but I would suggest they don't have a Wood and an Archer. You know, Archer is seriously fast. So.
He's coming back, David. Have you heard any more?
I think they're pretty relaxed. They want him to. I think what happened. What is a good thing, Reg, is all these franchises. There is a control of the number of overs you can bowl, so you're only bowling 4 overs. So I think he needs to get out there. Difficult to not be under the spotlight, but in a perfect world, you would just like him to get back on the pitch. It's been a while. Just bowl. Because when he played in the Big Bash to start with, nobody had seen him. So, you know, after a while, the speed that he was bowling suddenly filtered around the world. So I think I think the area that I would always be concerned about is, and that's what I've been asked to do, is to search the country for young spinners. Rehan has shown that actually you can play at 18 in a protected environment, and find other spinners. You know, but it's difficult, as you know, Reg. The cricket that we play doesn't necessarily lend itself to masses of spinners, but there are spinners out there, particularly wrist spinners, that we need to identify, protect, give them opportunities, not overcoach them, just say, look, you know, and Rehan's message will be heard loud and clear in every community in England, that actually 18 doesn't make any difference age. If you're good enough, you'll play.
Yeah. Norman,
so England is still in Pakistan, and now have they now left?
They're going to go golf. They had a golf day booked, didn't they?
They did, but I think.
So where to for them next? Are they playing a series?
They go New Zealand next to the Test team in February.
And then they play a Test match against Ireland, and then it's Australia, I think.
So
Ireland comes first, then New Zealand.
Yeah.
No. It goes to New Zealand in February for 2 tests. Then we got a one-off test against Ireland, and then the Ashes is early, isn't it? It's June.
Yeah.
June for the Ashes. Norman, there's a real possibility that the England bowling lineup for the first test, seamers, could be Anderson, Robinson, Archer, and Wood. I think there's a real chance that they could go something like that.
I'm not Broad.
So you're going to have a chance to do it Broad then?
I mean, what do you do? I mean, Broad, I'm not saying Broad doesn't play. I'm just saying there's a real chance that who do you you can't
back 5 years, Reg. We didn't have a choice like that.
No.
When you're adding, you're picking 4, and Stuart Broad doesn't get into that 4. That's. Yeah.
Did you know, Norman, when the last time England won a test match without Broad and Anderson in it? The last time England won a test match without either Broad or Anderson before this one.
Yeah.
Give me a guess, Norman. Give me a year. 2007. 2007.
Wow.
Was the last time we won a test apparently without Broad or Anderson.
That's incredible.
So, say again, David.
15
I'm
years.
still in charge.
Yeah. So it's down to you, David. When
So realistically, the England side going into an Ashes, although it's a little bit early to be certain, they would stick with Duckett and Crawley, put Pope in there, Root, obviously Stokes, with the likes of, well, Liam Livingstone may figure again, we're not sure.
Not Brook and Bairstow will figure. And then they've got to make a decision with the gloves, as David rightly said, because they will want to play the two. If Archram would have fit, and you can't drop Robinson, David, can you?
No.
No.
And you can't drop Jimmy Anderson either.
Ask the opposition if they like to play 12. That'll solve our situation.
I don't think that'll happen somehow. But Australia's got a lot. I mean, okay, they've got a very strong bowling unit. We know that. But if injuries take part is one thing. But the Australian batting lineup, it'll be interesting to see what they do with it going into that. Especially when Warner's. I'm actually in the process of Buri Majunda from Rev Sports, who I worked with recently. He's good friends with Dave Warner. We had lunch together recently. I'm meant to be planning an interview in the next few days with Dave Warner prior to his 100th test. That's what he's organising for me. So we'll see if that comes to play.
I think what applies to him applies to lots of people who played for a long time, and it's something that I've always been really sensitive around. Players who have served their country to that level should be able to pick the time they leave the stage, or they should be saying, "Look, the axe is about to fall. Publicly, you make your own decision, and we'll react to that." And not be dropped or axed publicly because they've done so much for him. I know he's done a rocky road or whatever, but he's still a human being. He's got a young family. Let him have the stage, if that's what he chooses, to leave in a proper way.
So he's going to want to come over here, though, David, isn't he? He's going to want to play in the Ashes, surely.
But he's going to want to. He's going to want to finish his last game in Australia. So it almost tells me that he won't finish in Sydney with his 101st test. He'll want to play the Ashes and then maybe finish up the year after Australia. That's my prediction.
But he has to get some runs in the next two test matches. If he fails,
that's the key.
He might declare in that Sydney test match that this is my last test. So at least he's making that decision. And nobody...
He needs to do that. Now, look, the murmuring is that he's going to retire sooner rather than later. But I think he's going to be I predict he's going to score well in the Melbourne test.
Nah.
Well, we'll see. They
done.
are a formidable seam attack by South Africa. So,
well, the making of the man will be him doing that, I think.
Yeah, no. If he gets over that,
when he got his 100th test, so only scored 100 on the SCG, which was magnificent.
Well, he needed an England off spinner to bowl him a rank long off outside the off stump in the last over to get him over the line. So.
Are you suggesting that you helped Steve Waugh get across the line?
It just was not a very good delivery, which I keep reminding Richard Dawson of. So, he bowled it.
Joe Root joins esteemed company this week, Norman. Did you see that one? He became his third player to take 10,000 runs, score 10,000 runs and take 50 wickets. Only the third player. Do you know who the other two are?
Well, I'm going to guess and say Border.
Nope.
Sobers?
Nope.
Callis
and Steve Waugh.
Wow. Yeah, that's right. He's got 92.
Yeah. So apparently that was the stat. So
that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah. 10,000.
If his back held up, he ought to bowl a lot more. But again, he's a bit in the Stokes category. You know, they have to manage them. You know, Stokes is a walking advert for Elastoplast these days. So not so much on his knees. So, but his captaincy has been a revelation. He is. I'll tell you what it is, Norman. He is like Shane Warne. Shane Warne had been given the opportunity to captain. He would have been as lightning as Ben Stokes. Various circumstances,
I agree.
And everybody else, that didn't happen. And again, Ben Stokes would do the same thing. Circumstances and defeats gave him the opportunity. If we kept winning, Joe Root would still be captain. But he's, and it's early days, you know. And if you look at the cycle of captains, particularly internationally, they have a bit of a honeymoon period to start with the winds going up, and then it sort of goes slightly downhill.
Yeah, but 9 out of 10 wins, David, is a pretty good start.
Well, I would suggest when England play, then unless there's a monsoon during the course of the match, you can just take the draw out completely.
Yeah. We've got a comment, Norman keeps asking a gentleman online about Jason Roy.
Yeah.
I think it's too far to come back for Jason Roy. I think England have probably moved on now. I don't know if David agrees with that. I think it's a long way back.
I think they like the way he played, and when Jason Roy at his best was
but it's time's moved now, isn't it? They're going to open with Butler.
Because people come onto the stage, you know, there's just more people who are playing. So
now Brooks come in, you know, it's just there's too many players there, I think,
and young players. But I wouldn't write him off completely. I think that he just needs to get some runs, Reg. I don't know what environment. He just needs to rebuild his confidence a bit.
He's always been a bit patchy on his form, though, David, for many years, isn't he? Yeah. He's a very much a streak player, isn't he?
Yeah. And I think if you play like that opening the innings, you've got to be really careful of the type of wicket that you're doing it on. You know, so if you do it in England, and then some of those wickets in the T20, they seemed around a lot, actually. And in the end, during the tournament, it seemed that actually sides were dare I say it, Reg, batting in an England basis, like we won't lose any wickets, and we'll build our momentum up as the innings progresses. So many people will 2 down within about 8 balls. So
yeah.
But you must admit, Alex Hales, we could have talked about him only less than a year ago. We wouldn't have written him off not to come back. And look what he's done.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hales is better than Roy, isn't he? I can't see that Roy displaces Butler, Hales, Stoltz, or Bairstow. They're all there's 4 names all vying for the opening slot. They're really in the white ball team, and Roy's down that list. He really is. Shame, but there we go. Time to move on. He should be proud of what he did.
Yeah, but I wouldn't. You know, sport's a funny thing for us. You know, people that goes in cycles. So he's young enough to come back. But Bairstow at his best is virtually impossible to bowl at.
Yeah.
Pakistan have just announced their team or their squad to play New Zealand. Geez, Pakistan are playing a lot of cricket of late, aren't they?
They're playing Boxing Day. I think they're playing Boxing Day against New Zealand, Norman.
It's about what I'm getting at is they've played Australia now, England now, New Zealand. Pretty good hand.
But on Boxing Day, there's no break for them. They would have played 3 back-to-back tests and then straight into New Zealand.
But
it's good to see, though. It really is good to see.
Oh, for them to come back into it, that crowd at Rawalpindi was extraordinary. That they could get the. Yeah, I think it's just brilliant that they're back playing because they having been fortunate to visit the country on a number of occasions, like everywhere in the subcontinent, their desire to play cricket is just phenomenal.
Did you bowl spin there, David? Did you enjoy the wickets?
No, I got reverse. I bowled 1 out over to Javid Miandad, and he reverse swept me 5 times from mid-off to short third man. And they all went for 4. And my captain, Zahir Abbas, walked off the pitch because he didn't want to associate himself with me. So.
But the pitches there they're somewhat slow as well, aren't they?
They're slow, yeah. But they're well. I think it depends where you're playing, Norman. So, and they can, but you know they've had decent spinners, Reg. But if you look through the records, that you know. Obviously, when they had Abdul Qadir, that was a secret bowler. When they had Thaqlain Mushtaq, that also was somebody who was a heavy wicket taker.
Yeah.
And they have had wicket takers in the main thing, but they have produced over the last 25 years a stream of world-class seam bowlers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Wakar and Wazim were the Jesus
Yeah.
Christ.
Yeah, and then Imran before him, Safraz Nawaz. They've had a dream. Actually, the guy I did meet in the UAE was Manasseh Nazar.
Yes, remember that name.
He played in the Lancashire League. He played at Burnley. He played at Jimmy Anderson's club. And we were talking about Zahir Abbas, who obviously I played with. He played with, and sadly Zed's health hasn't been too great recently, but he's making. And he talked about the first time he batted with Zed, which was against Sri Lanka before they were recognised as Test match team.
Right.
And I have witnessed this running between the wicket on occasions, quite rightly for me. Manasseh Nazar is an international batsman. So he told Manasseh that actually on the sixth ball, I want you to run, because he wants to get down the other end and face the next over, which he duly did and had to dive headlong into the crease to survive. And the next over, he tried the same tactic. And Manasseh said no. And Zed was very, very upset by the whole thing. And he walked down the wicket and he said, Manasseh, I know this is your first sort of involvement at this level. Just look around the ground. There's lots of spectators here. Can I just point out they've come to watch me, not you?
That's a W. Oh, crikey. It's an old line as well from the doctor, an English player.
W.G. Grace.
Yes, sorry, W.G. Grace. Yeah, didn't he say that when he got bowled?
Yeah.
Once he picked the bails up, put them on, and said, they've kind of watched me bat.
Yeah.
Don't get me out there.
So doesn't apply to your batting, Norman, doesn't it? You'd get many more runs if you're allowed to do that.
I have to use that tactic next time. I'll use that tactic next time. Especially when I go to England next year and take on MCC.
Norman, what's the plan for talking over the Christmas period? Because there's cricket going to also be played.
It's pretty open. I mean, obviously Australia playing. There's boxing test matches throughout. The boxing will be a concentration, so that starts on the Monday, the 26th. Certainly will be on. So hopefully regular. I had a bit of a break. I was not 100%, so I'll be continuing on. If you guys are available, we'll have it quite regularly. Maybe not every night, but most nights.
No. Just give us enough warning, so we can do what we do.
But just on Harry Brook though, before we forget, what you've predicted Harry Brook, you've done well. You've got him into the team. He's performing. Give me an indication of the longevity of Harry Brook. Where do you think he's going to head? Is he going to be at Joe Root in terms of run scoring numbers?
Oh, without doubt. He models himself on Joe Root.
Wow.
He's similar in terms of personality. He leads well.
Well, have you heard him talk? He's very sensible, Norman.
Yeah, no. What I would say, I'm not suddenly proclaiming that private school's the right thing, but he certainly benefited from going to Sebra, working with a guy called Redwood now, a guy called Martin Spate.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
Who played for Sussex and for Durham.
Yeah.
He's really good. And I think going to that type of school suited Harry, because I attended a function in his absence because he was doing something. He was playing the one days in Pakistan, and his grandmother was an extraordinary lady. but they're so proud of what he's doing, and he's taken on some different things. Norman, he went and played in the Premier, the Pakistan Premier League, and was successful. So playing on their wickets was not an issue for him. So he's done his groundwork. So, but I think, without putting massive pressure on him, but he's such a well-grounded young man that he will go from strength to strength, and he's a really good captain in the areas that he has been. Wouldn't say he has to do that now, but he's. And it wasn't a big statement to make, Norman, that everybody and Reg would have heard his name mentioned. And he's scored runs in our domestic cricket. But the thing that was different is that they got him in straight away.
Where should he bat? 3 or 4 in the end?
4 probably.
4.
Yeah, I mean, his test's going to come in in New Zealand in February. It's going to be different. It's going to be a bit greener, and Bolton Southey are a test for anyone in the world, especially in New Zealand. And he's going to.
It will be. It'll be a different test, but he'll be up to it, right? Don't worry.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, but it's
plays at Headingley, so it seems around there. So
it does. Yeah. And
Then
then
ultimately the Ashes will test him. That'll be the big one.
Marnus Labuschagne bowling at him in the summer, weren't he? When the rest of the Australians have failed.
Yeah.
Well, did you see the ICC ranking?
I say to Labuschagne that actually I've never seen anybody celebrate wickets like he does. He's in the Tahir bracket of running around the ground.
So okay, you got Labuschagne number one, which I understand statistically we have to give him that position. Baba Azam's gone to number two, which is interesting in the listing. And then you've got even Travis Head's got into the top five, which wait and see on that one. Yeah, that's I don't.
How the hell has Travis Head got in the top five? He's only played 3 tests, hasn't he?
I'm a bit annoyed with this ranking system. You play a couple of good games, you get catapulted to the top. I don't know how that works.
Well, surely then Brooke must be in the top 5. He's played. His averaging must be averaging 70, mustn't he, in Test cricket over 4 tests or something silly.
Yeah. Well,
I mean,
the names that no one's reeled off are all good players.
Yeah.
I think in a given time, you could just throw them up in the air and they come down in a different order. So I think those rankings should be based over a longer period of time, and there should be a minimum number of innings to qualify. And I'm not talking 5 or 6. It should be like 10 to 20 or something like that. So,
absolutely.
Norman, how does Travis Head play the ball that's going to knock him straight on the forehead? Does he play that one well? Because Mark Wood and Jofra are going to enjoy bowling at him, I think. He doesn't play.
He's pretty short. He'll be an easy target. I keep on getting knocked by my dislike for Travis Head. Look, again, against the West Indies, it was easy to talk about playing well because it was an easy thing to do. But South Africa, he did get that 90 odd, so he did show me a bit of stick there at a time where the wicket was not favouring batters. So I'm not totally on his side, but I'm turning a little bit. But it'll be interesting. I can't wait to see England play. I'm forgetting everything. England, Australia, Ashes, England next year. Oh my God, I can't wait.
I think they're looking forward to bowling as Steve Smith rather than Travis Head. I think whatever happened when he got hit in the head, which is glad he's recovered, but mentally, looking at the way he plays short pitch bowling now, it could be interesting to watch, put it like that. He'll have plenty of opportunity to play it. I'll tell you that.
And Chris bowling at Norman in the challenge that's been Norman's accepted.
Is that right?
I'm going to smash him. I'm going to take him apart.
Single wickets contest, is it, Reg?
Sorry,
that's probably the highlight of the
Is it a single wicket contest? You know, they used
Norman
to have
challenge Chris to a batting and bowling duel. Yeah, and
I actually have the date, so I can tell you the date that we're playing the MCC. I have a date,
right? Well,
that'll be the bees knees and matches that will be.
Something else actually. So don't worry.
Do you know where you're playing them, Norman? Is it at Lord's?
No, the location's not settled yet. We're pushing because what we're doing is we're letting the MCC play on the SCG on the 6th day of the Test match in January. That's a little buttering up. So we do that. It's normally reciprocated. So that's what we're off the record.
It'd be the day after a Test match, Reg.
Yes. But
we may not get that from you, but we're giving it to you.
A live show from wherever it happens
we moved from what would have been the 6th day to the 3rd day because the Test match will be over by then. So
you like Norman, do you? You like because Chris can get it down there a little bit.
Well, Chris is in deep trouble. He better get a fair degree of ointment ready because I'll pretend to be throwing down the stumps when I'll hit him. By accident,
you know he opens the bowling in the Kent Premier League for Seven Oaks Vine, don't you?
Well, I haven't seen anything yet. I want to see it in the flesh. I want to see the real.
You'll rise to the challenge, Norman. Anyway, I have to, guys.
There'll be no heckling from the crowd either. You'll be kept silent. behind glass or something. All right, guys, that's been fantastic. I really enjoyed that. Thanks, both David and Reg coming on. In particular, David, with the discussion of Harry Brook. I love that. England deserved everything that they've done over the last 10 odd tests. The whole Rob Key, that right through to Baz, right through to Ben Stokes has been phenomenal. And I think Australia's certainly not settled about how they're going to handle this. It'll be very interesting to watch. I can't wait to see it all happen. So I'll keep you in touch.
Okay.
Norman,
take some medicine. Take some cough mixture.
Yeah, I know. It's a bit rough today.
I have a lovely Christmas, guys, and we'll speak hopefully after or in the new year.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. See you. I've never talked to you before.
Will do. Cheers, guys. Thanks, David. Thanks, Norman.
Yeah, ciao, ciao. All the best, Reg. Thank you, Reg. Wonderful. Look at these lovely gentlemen. David Graveney, former chairman of selectors of the England Cricket Board, and Reg Vernon, a very, very studious man, has a great son, Chris Vernon. Great to have these people on the show. Always do well, always provide entertainment with Alan Malloy. Adam Molyoke in the past, with Bonnie Pansar. Even Munchie comes on and does things there. It's all something that I really, really respect, and we certainly have had yet again another good show with these guys on there. So thank you very much for that. So Norman, you clearly, I'm not a hater of Trevor said at all. That's not true. So yeah, so Reg Vernon, Zach Crawley, yeah, but look, they've done well with him in there. So let's see how we go. All right, guys, any more questions? Anything more you want to add before we get going? So look, we're live here. Haven't had as many chats on this one as we did the other one. That's all right. Because on the live that we had earlier, the gig, we had almost 274 there. Pretty good. All right, guys. We'll talk soon again. It's now getting a little bit late here in Australia. Stay tuned. So view, like, and share the post. Rowan Coley, I can see him made a comment there. Australia will destroy India in Test series. I don't know about that. I don't know if that's going to be the case at all. But let's just note that we've had a great night. We just need to get a few more little posts done, and we'll be laughing. So stay tuned, guys. Don't forget to view, like, and share the channel, as I've always asked you to do. And you've generally come on great guns to do that. So very, very happy with the way things are going. So we've got a comment on the wow here. Okay. All right. So all the best, guys. Stay tuned. We'll talk soon. Carol, the best player, I think. Let's hope it is the case. All right, guys. Stay tuned. If you like and share, subscribe, hit the notification button, and we'll go from there. All the best.